Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is Friday, March 28th. Ted, we're at the end of the first quarter of the era of Trump.
The error of Trump.
Or that too. Yeah, on the heels of the whole signal thing, right? So this is cherry blossom season here in DC, and it's going to be 70 degrees. I was telling Ted, it's almost time to put away all of my multicolored fleeces that I own, my fleece sweaters, and
how many do you have?
T-shirts. Oh gosh, at least a dozen.
You know, this is a very inappropriate thing I'm about to say, but like if you ever with your husband did phone sex, it would be really boring because he'd ask you, "What are you wearing?" It's like a fleece.
My checkered fleece. My blue fleece.
My green fleece. Yellow fleece.
It's always a fleece.
But as an Asian person, do you ever wear yellow? You're not supposed to wear yellow when you're Asian.
No, because it doesn't work well with your skin.
Looks terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you look all like jaundice and yeah. So yellow is not like a favorite color for me. Although I do like a mustardy yellow.
It gives you that whole liver failure look.
That's true, but you have to wear like bright red lipstick to offset. That's and I don't, as you can see, I generally don't like wearing makeup. Anyway, I'm Manila Chan. That's Ted Rall. I'm over here in Washington, D.C. That's why I'm talking about the cherry blossoms. Ted's up there further north in New York City. You're tuned into the Ted Manila
in the Arctic
Show. The freezing Arctic. No, you guys aren't nearly as cold as you used to be, Ted, like 25 years ago.
No one is.
Yeah. So, we'll be like Florida pretty soon here I'm in the mid-Atlantic. You're not considered mid-Atlantic.
No, New York is definitely not considered mid-Atlantic. I don't think New Jersey is either. I think maybe it starts in Delaware. Like Washington, sense. Delaware, but Maryland is mid-Atlantic for sure.
Yeah. So I'm mid-Atlantic. You're northeast then?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Not New England. That starts in Connecticut. New York's kind of like Texas. Texas is its own thing. Like it's not the South. It's not the Southwest. It's not the Plains. It's kind of
forget this is the South. DC is the South.
It is. Yeah, it's south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, and I'm in the old part of what was considered DC in Northern Virginia near Mount Vernon, literally near George Washington's home. So I'm south.
Say hi to George for me.
I've been there.
Did you know that George Washington, was spectacularly wealthy? He was if his wealth were adjusted to today's dollars, he'd be worth more than Musk and Bezos combined.
Get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. I mean, the entire country was founded on grift, and he was OG grift.
He was that rich?
He was so rich. I mean, part of it was good luck. People kept dying and leaving him money, but also he married well. But he also, but really, the two grossest things that he did, although it wasn't really considered gross at the time, but now we would consider it gross, is that he was a surveyor on what was then the Western frontier, like in Central Virginia and places like that. And he'd go and and he knew where all the best plots of land were. So he snatched them up for pennies on the continental dollar, and then when he had power, he sent troops out to kill all the Indians who lived there. And so then he could sell the plots of land for more and say, hey, it's Indian free. It's safe now. And then flipped it.
So he was like also not only a genocidal maniac, but he was the OG property flipper.
He was. And then the other gross thing he did is right where you're talking. He bought most of the land, which later became Washington, D.C., and sold it to the federal government. And again, at a massive profit.
He owned this area?
That's why it's called Washington.
It was like a mandate, like I'm going to sell it to you, so you still have to name it.
He was like Trump before Trump. Trump is a piker compared to this to GW. I mean, he was so he was really kind of out of control. I'm not saying he wasn't without his positive qualities, but certainly in terms of leadership. But he was major. I mean, by today's standards,
I knew he was a dick.
It was crazy. Yeah,
I knew he was a dick, but I didn't know that he had. I didn't know he owned all of this land.
Yeah. So like, all that he bought all the swampland, all the shitty swampland.
Wow.
And then sold it to the government and it was like, and basically he sold it to the government at what he said that they should buy it for, because he was Mac Daddy of the U.S.
He was the surveyor also, so he's like, I value this area at X amount.
Trust me, I know.
I'm a professional land surveyor.
Yeah,
I gotta say
that's
kind of admirable.
I cannot. Annie can't tell a lie. It's official.
Douchey or not, I gotta say, there's an ass for every seat. And if somebody was dumb enough to buy all of it, then, in the spirit of capitalism, good on GW.
And that is how shit used to work back then. So, I mean, it really wasn't. The idea of conflict of interest is really much more contemporary. Yeah.
How funny. Well, that's something I should probably learn more about, given that I live in the land of Washington.
Ron Chernow's biography of George Washington is well worth reading for this purpose. And it's so big that it's suitable for home defense. So, it's got two things working for it. Yeah.
That it's like bigger than Moby Dick.
It's a monster. It's like, I don't know, it must be about 800 or 900 pages for sure.
Oh my God. Okay. Hard pass.
It's a good read if you like history.
That's too much, though. That's a little too much for me. I'm barely now getting through the Ted Kaczynski manifesto, which we're going to discuss next week, I think. Yeah, because it's the anniversary, the 29th anniversary of the Kaczynski arrest, the Unabomber.
What year was it? I don't know.
1996. So that makes it 29.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
how about 29.
The big 29. Well, R.I.P. Ted, other Ted.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Because he only just passed away in like 2020, I think.
Yeah. He was living his best life.
Up until.
I think he was actually, but yeah.
Well, he was living how he wanted to live. That's for sure.
That's true.
And Ted, I think
his brother, the scoundrel who turned him in.
What kind of jerky little brother does that?
Fucker. I mean, I'm an only child.
I know.
Moments like this make me grateful. It's like, can you imagine? Like, what a disloyal bastard.
Well, and what's worse is Ted was like an ill baby, and in those times they didn't know how to properly care for whatever was his health problem when he was born. So they did took him away from his mother, and he had like no human touch for like at months. When a baby is first born, that's why they tell moms to disrobe and have the baby lay on your chest, is because this is the first few weeks is when the baby forms his connection to his mother, like the instant bond. And Kaczynski never got that. Was like
crucial.
Yeah. And that's why even with the sickest little tiny babies now, like the sickest little preemie babies, they still they fit in your hand and they still have the babies rest on the mom's chest or whatever, skin to skin, because the science now knows that the baby's brain is developing like a human connection. Forget it being the biological mom. That's a good thing too. But having human connection, skin to skin, creates some sort of like hormone secretion in the baby's brain that could prevent you from being a sociopath.
Yeah.
Crucial.
Well, I mean, what's funny is that, of course, obviously everything you said is 100% true. There's also, interestingly, even adults need human touch. And and so, for example, in the Supermax prisons, like the one where Ted Kaczynski was imprisoned, they don't touch the guards, even the corrections officers. Nobody touches the inmates, right? So like, for example, to be transported to, like, say, the shower, they roll a cage on wheels up to the cell. The door opens. The prisoner enters the cage. It's locked. then they roll the person it down, kind of like Hannibal Lecter style.
Oh my
and then
God.
And then it locks to the entrance to, like, say, the shower, and then they walk out to do their business, come back in. So normally in most prisons, like the correction officer will have like a hand on their shoulder or something.
Right.
Anyway, there's been studies, these people in these prisons lose their minds. They actually, even though it's a corrections officer, just touching their shoulder, human beings need that. And so the amount of psychosis in these supermax prisons is off the charts. And interestingly, it's the corrections officers who keep asking for better treatment for the inmates because they're easier to handle if they're not psychotic.
Psycho.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things to explore next week, not because we're fans of, like, sending out mail bombs and not because of that. Just he's an interesting historical character. And I think really underexplored, Ted. Not because he's like a vaunted character to me or you, but it's just it's like they put him away and never talked about it again. And that was it.
Yeah, that's right.
But the predictions.
I mean, look, obviously,
he wrote about in this manifesto.
The thing is, okay, so he did. I don't understand the whole idea of the supermax thing. I mean, okay, so he's a murderer. He definitely deserved to be in prison. He murdered people. But I mean, but the point is, like, why the supermax thing? Why not just send him to a prison? Like, why not? I mean, basically, it shows that the state was terrified of him and his ideas.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. But anyway, we were supposed to have Peter Coffin on today, but some other dad life things came up. So parental stuff, always, we get it. We're all parents on this show, including producer Robbie.
In fact, it's required. If you want to work for the TMI show, first you have to reproduce, then you can come on. Yes. You got to have those bona fides, Ted. You got it. But anyway, so adoption's acceptable. You can adopt.
Yeah, that's true. That too. And it helps you, the adoptor, also not be a sociopath, I would say.
I think that's true. Yeah, no, it's good for you. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's good for me because otherwise my head is already so far up my own ass as it is that, like, if I didn't have having a kid is, like, without a doubt forces me to be a little bit less selfish. So,
He'll kind of check you, and especially now because yours is an actual functioning young adult.
Yep.
With opinions, who will
Lord
who doesn't
knows.
Care that, he doesn't care.
My son, can you imagine being opinionated and not withholding on the criticisms either?
And that's exactly it. Is if you want some real truths, ask your kid.
I don't want the truth. No, no, I don't want those truths at all. But I get them whether I want them or not. So
that's right. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of parenthood. All right. With that, let's hop into the headlines. And Ted, I'm doing headline 5 because it's a video.
Okay. All right. Headline 5.
To send us out on a fun Friday. So all right, let's get into the news.
The Coalition of the Willing is meeting again. Meeting 3, the third summit of the so-called Coalition of the Willing for Ukraine. You might remember the Coalition of the Willing being for Iraq back in the past under Bush. Happened yesterday. French President Emmanuel Macron was the host. He's proposing a multinational force de reassurance force to deter the Russians after a ceasefire goes into place, and to fight if they're attacked. Before the meeting, Macron said if there was again a generalized aggression against Ukrainian soil, these armies would in fact be under attack, and if they're in a conflict situation, would respond to it. He also announced an additional 2 billion euros worth of French military equipment. That includes missiles, warplanes, and air defense equipment for Ukraine. The Force de Reassurance has its share of supporters, notably British PM Keir Starmer, but Italian PM Giorgia Meloni offered no national participation. The Italians. Man, the Italians, that's how they are. They were in the Axis with Hitler. And and Hitler was so frustrated because he grew up really admiring Mussolini, right? People don't realize how old Mussolini was. Mussolini got into power in 1920. A long time before Hitler did. And so he invented fascism. He was like OG. So when Hitler was very excited, you know how like you have your idol and then you get to work next to him and you're like so psyched, right? Like you're like, oh, this is the old. They always disappoint. But then when it came to the war, you know, they're Italians, right? So the main priority is food and wine. So like basically they didn't fight for shit. Right? I mean, they were worthless, useless. When in the Battle of France in 1940, when Hitler attacked France, you know, and France was a formidable adversary. Mussolini's there. We're there for you. So what did Mussolini do? He invaded the French Riviera only and occupied it throughout the war. That's what the Italians are like. Of course, the Italians can't be counted on for anything.
I never really put that much thought into the role of the Italians in World War II. I mean, but yes, they were on that side of the Axis, and
yeah, they were the Axis. They were the OG Axis. Japan came in later.
I never really thought about that. They were the ones that helped start up the whole thing. We're like, we're totally with you, you, Hitler, totally with you, and then they kind of vanished from history. I never gave it that much thought. Maybe it is a cultural thing.
Oh, they're slackers, man. They're lazy as shit. I mean, it was like my mom was born in 1935. Her first trip abroad was when she was 20 in 1955, just 10 years after the war. I asked her, what was the first trip when you left France? Because she grew up in France. She said, I went to Rome. And I said, wasn't that weird? And she said, why would it be weird? I'm like, you know, the war, they invaded, you know, they were an enemy, fascism.
But they chose the beautiful Riviera.
And she said, she's like, they're Italian. All they care about is their wine and their pasta. Like their heart wasn't into it.
Wow. You know, I seriously have never put any thought into like, what did the Italians actually do?
Hitler was just so annoyed and frustrated. He was like, like Mussolini, like, you know, El Duce, like, what the fuck? It's more like El Duce.
I really didn't put, but it's starting to piece together because like I remember being, for example, I was locked in the Colosseum.
With a lion?
No, I mean, so I'm doing the whole
like
tour
in a past
thing.
life you were a gladiator?
No, I mean, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, last time I was there, 10 years ago, probably 11 years ago. So I'm milling around doing the tourist thing. And I guess because back then I until this very moment, I never thought about the Italians being, you know, like la dolce vita, you know, I guess you're right. But I may or may not have explored parts that tourists are not supposed to go to, right? And they have speakers set up when they tell you the hours, or if they see you on camera doing something you're not supposed to do.
Manila Chan, step away from the door. Step away from the wine cellar.
I may have, you know, slipped away into an area that I couldn't hear the speakers, and they were closing. They're closing shop for the day. Sure. It was the evening. It wasn't even dark
since
yet.
It's Rome, that's probably 2 p.m.
It was like it
opened at 1.
Wasn't even dark. Wasn't even dark. And so why would I think they were going to be closing, right? It wasn't even dark. It wasn't even dinner time. I had natural sunlight. So I'm exploring perhaps where I shouldn't have been. And so I missed whatever the announcements were on the limited speakers that they had. And when I come to find out that all the fucking gates are closed, I'm like,
oops.
How can this be? It's daylight. Shouldn't guards be walking around like making sure all the tourists are out?
Are you kidding? Again,
no, they did not.
Italians. They don't. But I didn't know that. They don't care.
I didn't know that. So
it's a completely non-functioning country.
I
Montepulciano based economy.
It's a beautiful country with lovely people and
absolutely
solid good food.
Very good food.
But I didn't know that the culture was so like chill, like meh. So I literally had to go like climb over the entrance that I came into and like rattled on the gates to scream until the guards outside of the Coliseum saw that I was locked on the inside.
You're lucky they were even there.
I know that now, but at the time I was like, as an American, we have like jerky security guards everywhere.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Everywhere.
That's our entire country.
That's our culture. It's jerky security guards that'll throw you out by your collar, right? And they'll sweep, especially a place like if we had something ancient like the Colosseum, like you'd have people sweeping the grounds nonstop.
Oh, yeah,
so that's what I was expecting. Like I was like, even if I sneak away, the Italians, somebody will come tell me. A security guard will catch me and be like, "Lady, get out." That didn't happen.
Well, next time you go to Italy,
overnight.
You know better.
Well, I know better, but now I understand the culture. And Giorgia Meloni was like,
yeah. She's like, well, it's like, it's kind of like, we love you guys, but
she did
count on us not being there. But we wish you guys all the best against the Ruskies. Like, we think it's awesome that you guys are doing that. But like, you guys go take on Putin. And
so last night,
I'm with my Pinot Grigio.
Kind of. So last night, remember I was at CPAC this year, and I'm going to say recorded her address to the crowd, but she was super pro-Trump. She was like lavishing praise on Trump. There is no way that Giorgia Meloni was gonna go in the opposite direction against Trump based on what I saw.
Even if she hated Trump, and even if she was like, she wanted to sleep with Zelensky, she's still not doing it because, like what I said, Italian. Okay, so
she said, she said, this is a quote. She said, she hoped for the involvement of an American delegation at the next coordination meeting. So she's basically being non-committal. And then she said that it was childish. She kind of insulted Emmanuel Macron and said it was childish of him and Keir Starmer for trying to make Italy choose between the U.S. or the EU. So there's some truth there. There's truth. Yeah, there's
she's right about that.
And then the Croat president was like, hell no. He said flat out, we will not be involved in Ukraine in any form. That's a direct quote. He was like,
and that's interesting because Croatia has been historically an enemy of Russia.
I thought that too.
It was a fascist country. It joined the Axis in World War II. And it still has, like Ukraine, it has some, not as bad as Ukraine, but it has some fascist tendencies in its culture. Even its flag is the old fascist flag from World War II.
No kidding. I didn't know.
Yeah. So Croatia is the enemy of Serbia. Serbia is the traditional ally of Russia in Central Europe.
I guess it is. It's weird that they would suddenly say that and be like, hell no, hell to the no. My country ain't taking part. It was just a hard no from the Croatian president.
Yeah, that is actually that is a surprise. So Czech Prime Minister Peter Fiala said that the discussion was premature until we know what the terms for the ceasefire are, and I agree with that. That's true.
Totally.
Russia. So here's Russia's response. Maria Zakharova, spokesperson for the foreign ministry there in Russia, said that Britain and France are, quote, hatching plans for military intervention in Ukraine, close quote, under the guise of peacekeeping. I have to agree with her on that. She added, Russia categorically opposes such a scenario, which threatens a direct conflict between Russia and NATO. She's right. It's an incredibly insane and stupid proposal. So far, there's been no formal response from the Trump administration. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff called the plan simplistic and posturing in an interview with Tucker Carlson on March 21st. And we'll see what happens next. It is a dumb idea because, look, it's sort of like having a ceasefire without having a ceasefire. Like, the whole point of the ceasefire is basically Ukraine and Russia stop fighting. if there are peacekeepers, there's neutral observers, they need to be the equivalent of the UN white helmets. They need to be non-involved, people who have not been part of either side. Like, for example, okay, here, having France or Germany send troops with their allies of Ukraine would be exactly the same if Russia said, we'd like our North Korean friends to be the peacekeepers here in Russia, in Ukraine. And Ukraine would be like, fuck you. And they'd be right. So this is just like that. It's like, it needs to be an outside, impartial.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Get people, whatever. Get people who aren't involved. Get the Brazilians.
Who's impartial?
No, seriously.
Argentines.
Get people who are from get people from the global south. I mean, or just have it be the UN. It really should. This is a classic UN peacekeeping operation. You just need you just need observers.
Really trust the UN? You trust the UN?
I don't think you need armed UN troops. I think what you need is observers who come in, and
like election observers, and
just make sure that nobody's violating the ceasefire. Although, historically, it's always been the Ukrainians who violate the ceasefire, but with Russia. But we'll, whatever. I
gotta make a comment about okay, look at this guy hugging Zelensky.
Mm-mm.
Look at his hand gesture. Okay, just watch. Hold on. And he's like, right here, he's like, last time I saw you, you were about that
big. You've grown so big.
You've grown so big since you've become president.
Keep eating your Wheaties, little Z-Man.
It just looks like...
Yeah,
and then Zelensky goes in there and tries to mac down after this photo. He tries to go mac down with Giorgia Meloni, the face she makes. Emmanuel Macron, when he greeted her, they got a picture of her when he was kissing her. Her eyes were wide open and she was just like, ugh. They're doing the, the mwah, mwah. And her face, her lips were doing the mwah, but her eyes were like, get me away from this creep. And
But he has if he leaves his wife, he can always tell his new one, hey, listen, I've got $500 million squirreled away, and so
if who leaves what if Zelensky leaves?
Yeah.
He's never gonna do better than
he has $500 million. I mean, he can have anyone.
That's not true. I don't think so.
$500 million?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
He's still, look at him. He's like a little turd.
He's a little turd with $500 million.
Yeah, but he'll never do better than Mrs. Zelensky. She's pretty, and she knows where all the bodies are buried, so he can't leave her.
Oh, that's true.
He can't leave her. It's cheaper to keep her.
Yeah, maybe he can have Azov take care of her.
No, I don't think so.
They're
gonna turn on him. No, because I don't think he's Jewish, but I don't think she's Jewish. So they're going to view the Azov probably have a little bit of antipathy.
They're not. Yeah, there's no way they like him. Secretly.
She's a blonde hair, blue-eyed, true, what used to be called a Muscovite, right? She's a Muscovite.
Mm-hmm.
They probably like her more than they like him.
Oh, for sure. They're not into him.
So when the time comes, he's
got to go off to Italy. Speaking of which, the Department
where
of Housing,
he has his villa,
exactly,
Lake Como.
Exactly. The Department of Housing and Urban Development canceled some mortgages for illegal immigrants as the department seeks to prioritize federal home loans for U.S. citizens. Illegal migrants are already, of course, legally ineligible for FHA loans, but the new order gives HUD greater enforcement power to ensure that illegal migrants don't somehow get assistance anyway. The order is part of HUD's and the Department of Homeland Security's new initiative that seeks to end wasteful misappropriation of taxpayer-funded public housing resources that are going to illegal immigrants. HUD Secretary Scott Turner confirms the news on social, saying that his department is prioritizing Americans over illegals. Today, HUD terminated Biden's taxpayer-funded FHA mortgages for illegal aliens. Turner said American taxpayers will no longer subsidize open borders by offering home loans to those who enter our nation illegally. He added that the mortgages ought to benefit people who play by the rules, not illegals. The order also disqualifies migrants in the country legally, but who are here temporarily. It also disqualifies DACA, those are the Dreamers recipients, and people who are pending asylum because there's no guarantee that their residency status will be formally renewed or accepted. So that's what's going on there. I'd be curious. I've looked into a lot of these Trump executive orders, exactly how many illegal immigrants ever got FHA loans. I'm willing to bet that that amount is negligible and insignificant, and so as are so many of the executive orders that, like, for example, the stuff about trans kids, federal funding for trans kids, getting gender affirming surgery. I looked into this. You're talking about it's like 30 kids a year in a country with like 330 million people. It's like, I mean, it's happened, but you're more like, it's sort of like in the same way that like asteroids have fallen on houses, but it's sort of like, why are you even thinking about it? It just doesn't really happen. There just aren't anyone doing this.
So I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, having been a realtor in Los Angeles, and I'm working on getting my license here now. So I can say that having worked in the profession, I know that there are already very limited funds for people, available for people that need this sort of assistance, right? And there are limited homes that are technically what's showing on screen here that are HUD homes, that are HUD approved. So the inventory is limited. The money resources are also limited. It's not as vast of a pool of help that you would think would be available, given America's like stagnant economy, especially in like the way of jobs and especially right now with like a dearth of housing, right? So a part of me, the realtor in me, is kind of like, every little bit counts. Like that could be one of my clients, that my legal American clients, whatever. But then the other part of me is also, as the human, is like, yeah, but illegal or not, they're here. I don't care about their status. They're here. They're obviously upstanding people if they're trying to, apart from Robbie's going to, his ears are ringing now and he's going to probably pop in. But apart from coming here illegally, if they are an illegal immigrant, but yet they have put themselves in the position to get put a down payment on a home, they're ready to put down roots, they're probably more upstanding people than a lot of legal people that are true.
Here. But anyway, also they would have had to have committed fraud, right? In order to, because obviously you can't get these unless you have, say, a social security number, unless you, and you have to attest under oath that you are a U.S. citizen in order to qualify for an FHA loan. So
FHA, yeah, for these HUD,
for a mortgage. Okay,
properties.
And the thing is that we only, basically, we know that only about 0.1% of FHA loans overall are considered to have fraud involved. So only a fraction of that 0.1% could be, by definition, illegal immigrants. So, there's other forms of fraud. So you're really talking about a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1%. Again, it's like, okay, congratulations. You saved $6, Donald Trump. I mean, I mean, come on. The real money here is in the Pentagon. Please go after that.
Right. So that's why I'm, a part of me is kind of like, why are you doing this? Why? Everybody needs a place to live. If they're here illegally, I mean, it's
honestly,
better.
You know what this is like?
It's better that they get a house, Ted.
I'll tell you what this is like, Manila. This is like the Nuremberg laws. Under Nazi Germany, the first major step that started to attack Jews was a set of laws called the Nuremberg laws. And basically, they said that Jews couldn't work in certain jobs, but there was all sorts of ridiculous kind of harassing legislation in the Nuremberg laws. Jews were not allowed to own a radio. They could not go to a public park.
Really?
They could go to the park, but they couldn't sit down, or they could only shop during certain hours. It was all like death by 1,000 cuts. By the time the Holocaust began, these people had been living like constrained, abused, like lives, and they also their money was almost all gone because they were unable to earn a living. Right? They were living off their savings and scraping by, borrowing from their friends and relatives. So that's what this is about. All this shit about, going after migrants, going after the Gaza protesters at the campuses, who are, documented in most cases. But it's about harassing foreigners. It's about harassing illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, green card holders. It's about going after the dual passport holders. It's all about like harassing. It's America for Americans first, but it's not actually making Americans' lives better. It's really just about fucking with these people and marginalizing them and turning them into scapegoats. And, one of the defining characteristics of fascism is you have to have a scapegoat. In this country, it's migrants, it's illegals, it's foreigners.
For every little thing. That's the part. So, even like the compassionate realtor in me is like, leave the migrants alone if they're in the position to buy a house. Even if you're America First MAGA camp, like producer Robbie, think of it this way. If they saved up enough money to get an FHA loan with a small amount of money down and buy a home, and they're responsible enough to do that part, isn't that better than putting them up at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City at, like thousands of dollars per head? Isn't this better? Let them buy a house. Like, just, there's not that many of them anyway. So if you can save a few of them from not being at the Roosevelt by you, Ted, then I think this is a better route. Just let them buy
I miss the Roosevelt Hotel bar. It's a hotel, that hotel. It's a beautiful, I guess, 1920s or 30s hotel.
Art Deco style, yeah.
Yeah, total. And the bar is amazing. I don't know if it's trashed or if it's still okay, but I hope the hotel reopens at some point because
who owns it, right?
I don't know who is. I thought it was some foreign country
Pakistan.
owns it. Ah, yes.
The Pakistanis own it.
Yeah. Interesting and strange.
And they're renting it out at the time they were renting it out to the Biden administration.
I mean, look, it was a little worn, and it was definitely needing a reno. It's going to need of course, they might have figured like, well, we can do this. It'll be more worn, but who cares? We'll get some money before we do the reno. It's going to need a reno though.
Oh yeah, but they need to keep the old school Art Deco because that was really cool. Keep that vibe. Just saying.
Oh no! If you don't do that, it should be landmarked. It's not in New York. Almost nothing is landmarked that ought to be.
Oh really?
Yeah, like it's there's a diner near me that it's the last surviving wooden house on the west side of Manhattan.
Wooden house. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So Upper Manhattan used to have farmhouses, and there would be there were goats here. And not that long ago, like 120 years ago. And anyway, so a lot of those houses, they survived, and then they built like townhouses next to them, brownstones, and so on. This house survived. There's a diner in the basement. On the ground floor. And upstairs, you'll like this, is where the Beastie Boys used to rehearse when they were a young band.
No way! Super cool.
Now,
I do like that.
It should be landmarked. This should be landmarked. It's the last surviving, and the Beastie Boys thing alone should get a little plaque on the. But in New York they don't do that. Some asshole could just demolish that building, and no one would do anything about it.
Oh well, here in DC we swing in the other direction. Everything is a fucking landmark.
Yeah,
and that it prevents the city from actually getting prettier or cleaner or more modern or more, where it works for the migration flows of, the influx and outflux of people as time changes, because they label everything. Everything is landmark. Like Abe Lincoln took a shit on this toilet. So this, 1800s toilet must remain, including we can't change the pipes in this building, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry, we have to have the
Those are vintage pipes. Those are historical pipes.
Those are vintage pipes. Abe
James K. Polk
here.
drank water that came out of that pipe. So.
This is exactly. So we have the opposite problem here. By the way, we should pop in some breaking news. So I don't know if you guys heard, there was a huge 7.7 earthquake in Myanmar
massive.
And Thailand.
Some of the videos crazy.
Thailand. I know. So they're starting to slowly get a death count now, and this is going to be so far from the final.
Myanmar is very rural, so it's going to take a while to get the
Myanmar
information from
Burma. Burma says 144 are dead, 732 injured, and that's just the starting.
Those numbers are going to go up. Yeah.
Oh wait.
They're going to have mudslides. They have mudslides from that earthquake. It rains like a shit ton. It's very mountainous there.
I think it's monsoon season.
Oh yeah, so
that's going to be bad.
So it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that for Monday, because no one will know anything until Monday when they start.
And I wonder if there's a tsunami warning in Thailand.
Yeah. The Bangkok hotels with rooftops. I saw the video. They were sloshing around like a soda on a bumpy road in your car.
That must have been crazy. I wonder if the canals. Have you been to Thailand?
I've never been to Asia proper.
Oh, that's so crazy. So in Thailand, do you know about Bangkok? They have these canals all over. It's like Venice, and so it's like, I imagine there's sloshing, the water sloshing out of the canals.
But let me tell you, as a Californian though, with too much experience with earthquakes, I cannot imagine a 7.7, like a 7.7, So California.
I've never been through a major earthquake. I've been only in very small ones, 5 or 5.2. Well, there was the one here.
Californians.
I think, was it you and I who were on the air when the one hit New York?
No.
Or I was on the air with Angie, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Really? There was one that recently?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, well, so my mom told me that Indochina doesn't it can happen, right? Because earthquakes can happen, but it's not a thing like it is in California. So for Californians, we have kind of this mental scale where if the tremor, we all kind of know we're all our own seismic, we have our own seismic scale inside of us. So if things start shaking and rocking,
don't come and knock if the Golden State is a rocking.
If it's around a 4, no one really bothers to get up to oh my God, run outside. No one bothers to do that until it hits the 5 level. But anywhere between the 5 and a 6.5, because that's a big leap. You think 5 to 6, it's a big leap in what it feels like. I've not lived through a 7. And in the 1980s, the San Andreas fault was really rocking. She was rocking. And the Whittier quake was huge. It brought down the original Wells Fargo building in my hometown that had been there for 200 years, came crumbling down. Parking structures came down. And this is below a 7. Below a 7. So can you imagine? This is almost an 8. In a rural, poor country like Myanmar. It's going to be bad. We had dozens of people die in the 80s at the Great Whittier Quake of 88. There's going to be a lot of dead people in Myanmar, and probably downtown Bangkok too, because the buildings, as my mom told me, they're not retrofitted. They're not built retrofitted in Los Angeles, because our buildings are meant to sway, and so it can withstand the tremors and the shaking.
Yes.
It's not like that in Bangkok. So,
well, the zoning is not that great there.
No.
It's Thailand.
That's I'll allude to this because I've never been, and based on what my mom tells me, she's like, it's not the same building codes as in America. I'll say that.
Well, it's they're not. And then also those codes, such as they are, let's just say that they're not that rigorously enforced or vigorously.
Correct. It might look really pretty. From my understanding is you might go to downtown Bangkok and be wowed by the modern, sophisticated looking buildings, but that's just all smoke and mirrors.
It's best to sort of stand kind of away from them
It's what I've heard.
Yeah.
From people that know about structures. I've never been, like I said, like I've actually, I've had friends that are engineers and stuff that are like, oh yeah, I'm not checking into this hotel after all. I was like, why? And we're alluding to this, but the whole point is things across Southeast Asia may not always be as structurally sound as they appear. That's all.
Exactly.
All right, we'll go to the next story.
All right, let's do it. All right, so Representative Elise Stefanik's hopes of moving to the Big Apple have been dashed after Trump asked her to withdraw her candidacy to become UN ambassador. As we advance our America First agenda, it's essential that we maintain every Republican seat in Congress, Trump wrote, admitting the political nature of the decision. In other words, due to the very tight balance of power, barely for the Republicans in the House of Representatives, they can't afford to lose a single seat. They're worried that Stefanik would be, in a special election, replaced by a Democrat. She said that she's a team player. With 4 vacancies in the House, Republicans only have a 218 to 213 majority, meaning they can only afford to lose 3 votes anytime they want to pass a law. And that's assuming nobody gets sick or is on vacation or anything like that. Trump fears that if Stefanik goes to the UN, they would not be able to replace her with a Republican. But it's not exactly her seat that he's worried about. It's Florida's 6th district, formerly represented by National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, the stupidest man in Washington, D.C., according to his Signal chat record. There's a special election there on Tuesday, and Trump's team is worried that the Democratic candidate, Josh Weil, who is doing pretty well, might beat Waltz. His name is Randy Fine, although Trump did win that district by 30 points last year. A GOP poll from March has Weil in leading Fine 44 to 41 with 10% undecided. So this could go either way. This is, by the way, a poll conducted by Fabrizio Ward, who worked for Trump's campaign. So they're taking it pretty seriously. The February version of this poll had Weil behind Fine by 12 points. So the direction of this race, I think, is pretty clear.
Huh. Yeah, well, I don't have a whole ton to say about that other than I am very glad that Stefanik is not going to be the UN ambassador because she also spoke. She was there physically live at CPAC. And besides her Trump bootlicking there, which, I mean, let's be honest, this whole CPAC event was a Trump cheerleading section. That's really all it was. It was just a party for Trump. It was a victory parade for Trump, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what that was. But when she came on the stage, she was the speaker right before Trump came on stage. Mm-hmm. So, that's like a key position, right? Like if you get to introduce the president, like you get to come on right before him, that indicates how close she really is to the administration and close to Donald Trump. She is such a huge, huge pro-Israel, like the AIPACiest of AIPAC.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Huge. And most of her speech was just that, was talking about anti-Semitism. She was talking with the virtually non-existent, unfindable mass anti-Semitism that's happening.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated by this. I've been working on this piece now for the better part of a week.
Lying and
I'm not even kidding. There are basically there's less anti-Semitism in the pro-Gaza movement than I think there is say an average house. I mean, there's just basically it's like an anti-Semitism free zone.
There are more lightning strikes that hit people.
Yeah.
Than there are actual.
I mean, it's insane. It's like the new Russiagate. It's like just something that's made up completely.
But so she was railing on that at CPAC, and the crowd is just, whoa, whoa, yeah, whoa. And I'm going, this is like evidence free. Everything in her speech was evidence free. And she wasn't America first. She was Israel first. And here you have the MAGA people cheering, hooting and hollering for her when her speech was 100% evidence free. Because I took notes, I listened very carefully, and I'm like, where does she get this? Like, what is she like? This is completely made up science fiction that she was talking. And I was like, oh my God, this woman is going to be the UN ambassador. Like, this is her. We're looking at her. And now not so much. So
right.
I say, great. Keep your ass in the house. Like, let's keep you domestic and not put her forth as like our face to the UN. Not that Nikki Haley was great at that either, because that's, I mean, what the fuck? What, really? Like, Trump sent Nikki Haley and he almost sent this woman.
Yeah, no, I mean, I who do you think he's going to pick now?
I mean, this only happened last night, so my feelers aren't out there yet. But it's going to be somebody, I would say another neocon. It's going to be a hard neocon, and somebody that kissed enough orange ass to get the seat, just like Nikki Haley did.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Haley did it. I mean, she didn't.
You think it'll be another girl?
I think it'll be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who, but I think it'll be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I think Trump thinks, I get the sense that Trump thinks putting a woman in this position is better because it's kind of like a soft finesse.
It's
trying
diplomacy.
To bully.
Yeah.
You're trying to bully because you have to go in there and actually be a bulldog to represent what the U.S. position is on the world stage. But a woman can kind of present it better. For example, like in real estate, I defer back to real estate. Real estate is the first, and I don't know if it still is, but it was the first profession where women outperformed their male counterparts of any and made more money. So why? Because when you think you're buying a house, you think like home, mom, kitchen, women, cozy. So female realtors did better than male realtors historically. I don't know if that's still true, but years ago,
I would imagine
first practiced.
That was
the case. So I think that's applicable here to the UN, where you need someone that's a bulldog, but still has the image of being this a woman, and so you don't look when you're delivering this bad news, because it's always the US saying something horrible. You need it to come from somebody that has the feelings of mom, of wife, mother, comforting. That's kind of what you need. And I think Trump will choose a woman. I just don't know who. No idea.
Okay.
I'm just happy it's not her.
I hope he doesn't pick Clovis, because Clovis is busy.
No, Clovis is a boy anyway.
Well, he's thinking about transitioning. So. And
the cat DEI era is over. Over. Sorry.
Sadly and tragically. That's philophobic that you're talking about there. Anyway.
It's true.
And lastly, but not leastly, last week's arrest of the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, sparked the largest anti-government rallies in a decade and has resulted in widespread arrests throughout Turkey. Nearly 1,900 people have been arrested since the protests began 8 days ago. İmamoğlu, he's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main political rival, was thrown into prison on Sunday while awaiting trial on corruption charges. He'd been ahead in some polls, and many think that his arrest was politically motivated to stop him from running against Erdogan in 2028. Gee, you think? The protests are not shrinking, a journalist on the ground in Istanbul said. The method of protest, however, is transforming. He said that protesters have been holding public iftars, which are the evening meal to break fast during Ramadan, and that a big protest is planned for Saturday. Government authorities deported a reporter for the BBC for the crime of covering the protest, highlighting the dangers for the media in this bicontinental city. Protesters are calling for a boycott of Turkish businesses connected to pro-government news outlets they think are whitewashing the demonstrations. The government has expressed fears that the boycott could hurt the economy even more. Turkey always has a shitty economy. Turkey had been moving towards stabilization after a long period of political instability, soaring inflation, and economic woes. And by long period, we mean decades here. But the current political turmoil has started to impact markets, with mounting uncertainty prompting international investors to yank their investments out of Turkey. Simultaneously, the lira, the national currency, is under pressure, fell 3%, and it forced the central bank to sell reserves. The government is now trying to get the economic situation under control. Good luck. Turkey's capital markets authority has imposed a ban on selling short and speculating on further price drops. It also relaxed rules on stock buybacks to prop up rapidly falling share prices. In response, the index went up by about 2 points before reversing course, going back down to its lowest point since November. The consequences look dire, particularly since investors in Turkey depend heavily on the stock market as a hedge against inflation, which is currently about 39%, which I have to say, by Turkish standards, is not actually that high.
It's actually not bad. It's kind of stable at 39%.
120% is kind of like more normal.
Well, Ted, am I misremembering? But like, why is Turkey's money called the lira? Weren't the Italians? Wasn't that their money back in the day? Before
they had a lira too. But I mean, there's I'm not really sure why it's called the lira. I can look that up. But there's lots. That. It's sort of like there's the U.S. dollar, there's the Canadian dollar, Australian dollar. It's like just.
I don't know about that either. Why things are called the dollar?
There's the Uzbek som, there's the Kyrgyz som. So yeah.
Yeah, the lira. I thought they were just trying to sound more Euro because, for forever, Erdogan wanted to be part of the European Union. And I'm sure he's just fuming under his collar there with the whole idea of Ukraine getting in before him. So he's going to be pissed. But yeah, this under the potential, maybe.
Okay, I have the answer to your question.
That he's not going to
about the lira.
This guy's going to run, Ted. Like that's clearly why he doesn't want this dude to run.
So it's an old thing. So in Latin, the term pound or balance, which was originally a Roman unit of weight, and of course, coins used to be based on the weight of gold or silver or bronze or whatever they were made of. Was that the word was called libra? Okay, so Turkey.
I've heard that.
In Turkey, it was adopted under Ataturk. Under the Ottoman Empire so it was introduced in not Ataturk. It was introduced in 1844 under Sultan Abdülmecid I, replacing the kurus. It reflected the empire's engagement with European powers, particularly Italy and France, whose currencies had similar names, and they influenced Ottoman economics. The Ottoman lira was pegged to a bimetallic standard, gold and silver, which was common at the time. When the Republic of Turkey emerged after the Ottoman Empire in 1923, they kept the lira. The Turkish lira has been renamed the new lira in 2005, which they had to drop 6 zeros due to hyperinflation. So they dropped, they divided it by 1 million. So a million old lira is 1 new lira. And then they just dropped the new in 2009. That's how bad the inflation is there.
Wow. Well, there you have it. But
that's a TMI answer.
Ted, I predict in 2 years the new president of Turkey will be the old president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. I predict him to be the winner.
Well, it's going to be hard for his opponents to run from behind bars.
It can happen, though, but I still predict. I know we're way early. Campaign season hasn't even started in Turkey, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to call the winner in Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Hey.
Yeah.
All right.
Erdogan.
Anything else to say about that?
Erdogan.
That is the mandated chant of the country, Ted. Don't you know that?
It's the national chant of Turkey.
It is. Even at the soccer stadiums, you just, when you're watching the football crowd, I don't care who's playing. If they're playing in Turkey, you have to just chant, Erdogan, Erdogan. That's the only permitted chant. But look, we joke about him. Love him or hate him, Ted. You have to admit that dude is a shrewd and crude political player, and he is a survivor. And he, whether you think he's slimy or smart, that guy has managed to, he's a survivor, and he is a political, a political animal. That dude is going to find a way to stick around. And whether by peace or poison or whatever plot, that dude's going to be there. All I'm saying.
Yeah, no, he ain't going nowhere. No question about that.
But yet, Ted, just as a comparison, here in the West, we're like, Donald Trump, oh my God, democracy is dead. Yeah, okay, well, okay, sure, whatever.
Democracy's not dead. It's just not worth much.
Like the old lira.
Yeah. New democracy is like 1/1,000,000th of an old democracy or something.
Of an old democracy. All right, so I wanted to end our Friday with a Friday funny, since we were talking about yesterday about the dual citizenship and Ted, I don't know, did you hear as much this time around in the 24 elections as you did in the 2020 elections of people being like, oh, if Trump wins, I'm going to move to Canada?
No, I didn't hear as much about it, but some people, I guess it's like people got so tired of hearing that, like, Alec Baldwin, you're still here. And,
well, he can't leave because he had to stand trial for all those,
for all the people he's killing. If I were him, I would flee. I would ask Elon for a one-way ticket to Mars to get away from Hilaria.
Oh no. Hilaria Baldwin.
I'd be like, and you don't even have to pack any spare air, really. Just
they have like
get me on there.
4 or 5 kids now.
76 children, or he's like the new. She's like Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. No, but they're all her birth children. Like she is birthing them all.
She's popping them out.
She's popping them out.
I want to say there's 4 or 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're at number 5. And she must be fertile myrtle.
Do you think they're all like super belligerent, like all the other Baldwins? Like the fighting must be like insane.
Oh, and I think they only have 1 girl and all these boys. But anyway, point is, Baldwin was leading the Hollywood charge back then in 2020 of like, I'm moving to Canada. And you know what, Ted? Had he done that, the poor woman that he shot on set, it would have never happened had he moved to Canada, theoretically.
I actually know one person who is actually moving to leave the United States because of Trump.
Huh. Well, so people say that, and I accidentally just stumbled on this funny little 1.5-minute skit. It's not SNL. It's some Canadian, so we're not going to get in trouble, I think, for using it.
Oh, God.
I don't think.
Well, it was a nice show while we had it.
I know. But I think the Canadians are more willing to share with their American friends than SNL.
Oh, boy.
Willing to share with us.
All right.
TMI. So here it is.
We did it, babe. We finally left the States. We really moved to Canada.
Almost left during COVID, but this election was the last straw. No more right-wing fascism for us.
You the new neighbors? Where you from? Let me guess. Latte-sucking, gender-swapping, oil-hating Toronto?
We're not Canadians.
You're immigrants. Why don't you go back to where you came from?
But we thought Canada loved immigrants.
That was the old Canada. The new Canada loves Jordan Peterson storming the Capitol and telling people to go back to where they came from. Go on.
Oh, look, honey. Free Canadian health care. Hey, you can't just leave him there.
Not my problem, lady. Hallway at the hospital was full.
I'm fine. It doesn't look like it's going to rain.
Get back in the truck.
But Trump, this is tolerant, progressive Canada.
I will leave you here at the lamp, Helen.
The lamp.
Mexico?
Are they gone?
Yep. Good one.
Should probably take that down.
Canada may not be perfect, but it's not going to get much better if Americans start buying up all the houses. Do your part.
Are you just going to...
So this was like kind of an anti-American video that I presume it's actually less to do with the Trump issue, more to do with housing. I think that was the point, is Americans are people are buying properties there.
Yeah.
But given that the Canadians are kind of complaining, Ted, do you have any, take a wild guess. Don't look it up. Take a wild guess on average. How many Americans, whether they're American residents / citizens, so we're talking green card holders, permanent residents, whatever, or U.S. citizens, on average, are moving to the Great White North?
Have moved or are moving?
Are, like, every year. What do you think that number is?
Well, it's not a lot. I'm going to say 20,000.
How about more of like 6,000?
Wow.
6,000.
Hey, that's the size of 2 high schools.
So. Yes, that's true. My high school is like over 2,000 people. So right here, according to, what is this? This is the Toronto Star. So here's some numbers.
Well, that's not going to have, the thing about those numbers is they're not going to have a significant impact on their economy or anything. I'm sure a lot more Americans moved there to evade the draft in the 1960s.
Well, they said the height, this article says like the height of American migration from south to north into the Great White North hit its peak in like 2019 at 9,307. And then now we're kind of looking more or less, the numbers went down. So 2016 was 2,100 in 2016, and then 9,310 in 2019. But you know, they're seeing an overall rise. So we're not even seeing 10,000. They never hit the 10,000 mark, Ted, in the past like 30 years. No one's hasn't hit the 10,000 mark. So for as much, you know, like blowharding Americans are like, I hate Trump, I'm gonna go to Canada.
Well, moving's hard. Moving to Canada is probably really easy, right? Because it's like the guy I know who's leaving the country.
I'm gonna get dual citizenship.
He's going to Europe, right? And he's going to Spain. And to move to and Scott told me about someone he knows who also left due to Trump, and they brought 330 pounds worth of stuff, and that's it. Everything else they have to leave behind, like the furniture, all that. It's too expensive to move out, across the big ocean. But moving to Canada or Mexico, you can do it with a truck. So obviously you can bring all your shit. So it's a lot easier. So that means that immigration to like Europe has got to be even lower. It's got to be hard.
Yeah, this is. I've moved overseas before, but of course I was in my 20s, so
the best is if you move like with the diplomatic corps. I do you know? I don't know if they still do this, but the members of if you work for the State Department and you're sent to the other ass end of the world, to like the U.S. Embassy in Vanuatu, they fly all of your shit over there. Heard. Everything. Like you have like a gross sectional. They pack that up and they send it there. Heard. It all goes like on a transport plane. Yeah.
Which is crazy, because why wouldn't you just move your diplomats?
Buy local shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have diplomatic housing that's already furnished, like an Airbnb type.
Right. And what's crazy about the diplomatic housing is it's like the suburbs in America. Like you can be in, say, Saudi Arabia, but your house looks like you're in Bethesda. Right. It's crazy.
It's like a Hollywood.
You don't even know. And every detail, like the hose that is like attached to the wall, in the back of your house to water your plants. That hose is not like a Saudi hose. It's an American hose that came from like Home Depot. And you can tell it's all the little differences. Like, how the light switches are different overseas?
Yes.
In those houses, they're American light switches.
They're American flippy switches. Flippy.
Yeah.
And the plugs. Importantly, they use the three-prong
the window latches. They use those funny cranks that we have.
Because they want you to feel like you're at home, like kind of, and make you feel like you're still.
It's almost like it's kind of wrong, because
I disagree with it.
It's also kind of hurting the local economy and stuff.
Well, I just personally disagree with it, because I think if you're going as part of the diplomatic corps, you should strive to try to understand and immerse in their culture.
Agreed.
Of the country you're going to. Like, so I imagine right now, like Kim Guilfoyle, who is now the U.S. ambassador to Greece, like her.
That's a pretty plum assignment, by the way.
I know. Yeah, but Don Jr. had to get rid of her, and like.
Yeah, but I mean, he didn't send her to Belarus, No,
he's obviously a very nice guy. He sent the ex he told dad to send the ex-girlfriend to Greece and do her some good. It probably ended nicely. They owned some property together. They didn't get married. They have no children together. So he sent her off to Greece. I can only imagine that her beautiful Grecian home on the outside, it probably is some beautiful, old Greek building, but on the inside, sure. Probably looks like an American house.
You're in America. Yeah.
Right. I can only imagine. And I don't know. But anyway, she's already dating some Greek shipping heir. So she's immersed in the Greek culture, Ted.
She's fully, or maybe he's immersing. He's doing the immersion. Yeah.
He's really doing the immersion into American
culture.
Culture.
She's fun. She's quintessentially American. That girl could not be anything else. She can't be Australian. She can't be Canadian. She can't be Belgian. No one looks like American. That outside of the United States. It's by law.
That's true. And she's Gavin Newsom's first wife.
I know, that's so strange. But she was much hotter then.
Well, she was super gorgeous.
Yeah.
When they were
now like, she's terrifying.
Now she's had too much work done. So I don't know what Don Jr. was doing. But anyway, back to this whole Canada thing. They're like us, Ted. They have light switches like us, Ted.
That's true. They have 110 volts in the wall.
They drive on the same side of the road as us, Ted.
Mm-hmm. That's true. They drink beer like
Canadians, we do. They even like baseball.
True. And they even have professional baseball teams.
These Canadians, Ted, it's almost like they're
they have 3-digit area codes like we do.
Isn't that weird? Their neighborhoods, they have Rambler style houses with little curbs on them, just like we do.
That's true.
It's almost like I didn't leave America.
Right. Well, that's why people like it. They're like, plus the politics are strange there too.
No, the politics, but it stops there, because then the politics are super weird, and you elect, like, speaking of Gavin Newsom, Justin Trudeau is the Canadian Gavin Newsom. He's got that, the big teeth, the big white teeth, and the polished blah, blah, blah, and he speaks many languages.
But he's about to be gone, isn't he? I mean...
Yeah, because they shoehorned in Mark Carney, and I think he's been sworn in already, but Trudeau is still like the face, because Carney's not as easy on the eyes as Trudeau. Not for me. I don't view Trudeau as, he's not like good looking to me. I could see why women think he's good looking. Just not for me. But they still use him as the face of the party, even though he's now like stepped down as the prime minister. But
I wonder what he's going to do.
The politics are weird. The wife has left him.
Yeah.
They're in the throes of divorce. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, the whole thing about like maybe he's going to come to America. I've heard he's in talks to do like a TV show, which I can see. I can see Justin Trudeau hosting a TV show.
Me too. I can see that.
A political show here in
Bonjour.
Washington.
Or no, it would be like bonjour, bonjour.
No, he's fluent.
Yeah, but no, I know, but Quebecois people, they speak with that really nasally, like, je suis Québécois. Je suis le premier ministre du Canada, Pierre Trudeau.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to go listen to that. I didn't know, because I mean, I have French cousins and stuff.
There are very Frenchy sounding people, proper French sounding people, like on Canadian television, but not all. It's kind of like a hodgepodge.
Oh, I got to look that up now. I didn't know. But anyway, I thought that was kind of a cute and funny video about how Canadians, even they don't even want us there. Because that's what that video was.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think they're irritated as shit by Trump and the tariffs, and they think that like they're like, what the fuck? Especially. We've always been nice. We've always been friends. We've been there with you. We fought alongside you in the dumbest of all your dumb wars. Even Afghanistan, the dumbest of them all. And like, so why are you picking on me? And I think they're right. We shouldn't be. They've always been nice to us. Agree. We've never had to worry about the Canadians. This is like, I mean, honestly, it's appalling. It's really, really bad behavior.
Now they're starting.
It's like coming home and kicking your loyal dog. It's just not right.
Well, I wouldn't call it. They're kind of like the little brother that Americans come home from college and we're like, hey, come here, idiot. And give him a noogie like, come here, Trudeau.
But there's nothing loving about it,
But yeah, and it's actually not we're kind of being.
It's not cool. I apologize on behalf of our country.
Yeah, I've always
all
liked
of our Canadian
Canada.
friends.
Every time I've been up there, I've enjoyed it. The people have always been great. What happened to them under Trudeau, I think, was horrible. Like especially during COVID. I don't wish Trudeau to happen to anybody, but it happened to them. And I think they deserve better. I don't think Mark Carney is going to be any better, but I also get why now suddenly they're like kind of like they've got some anti-American sentiment, and I don't blame them. If you go look at any of their comedy shows, Ted, they're doing it right now by way of comedy. Their anti-American feelings, they're putting it out through comedic TV shows and skits like what we just saw, where it's slightly anti-American, but you can still be like, I'm just kidding. We're just joking. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of how they feel right now, Ted, towards us, which I wish weren't the case, because seriously, what did the Canucks ever do to us? Nothing.
It's wrong.
Yeah. So I don't know. Manila and Ted like you, Canadians.
We do.
One of my late best friends was Canadian, and she was as sweet and kind as her name would imply, Mary Rogers.
Wow.
Could you be more?
I think if your last name is Rogers, you kind of have a higher obligation to give your kids like, a more interesting name than if your name was like Rumpelstiltskin. Then Mary Rumpelstiltskin is like, all right, that's fine.
Mary.
But if it's like Rogers, I mean, you should do better. I mean, it's like you don't name your if your son is like let's say you're like I don't know, like a Smith. You don't name your kid like Mark Smith. Like, well, no.
I know what you're saying, but yeah, my whole point was, I mean, Mary, unfortunately, sadly, surprisingly,
you're an example. I mean, you have a common last name, but an uncommon first name.
Right. So it works. Mm-hmm. Mary,
I have an uncommon last name.
Yes. Mary Rogers was the epitome of Canadian nice. As nice and sweet and Canadian as her name would imply. Mary Christine Rogers. Like, it just, wow. She's just, she passed away.
Even the middle name, nothing to work with. Nothing.
I know.
They couldn't name her like Fiona.
Nope.
Well,
she was one of my best friends. She passed away, and that
or one of those fake names like made up from geography, like like Mary Ronkonkoma Wilson. Yeah, no. You know how there's girls named Asia, and stuff like that. No one's ever named Parsippany.
Vanuatu Jones.
Vanuatu Jones would be an amazing name. It's like she's Vanuatu Jones. She was the blaxploitation queen of the 70s. Like,
that's a good name, actually.
Vanuatu Jones sounds like Cleopatra Jones. It's amazing.
I came up with a really good name just now. But Mary was the first Canadian friend I ever had.
And her sister, in her fighting force of super kick-ass ninja chicks, Tuvalu Jones.
That's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. Well, anyway, my whole point, my whole homage to Mary here was she was the epitome of Canada nice. Mm-hmm. And every Canadian I ever met through her, may she rest in peace, she would be appalled at what's happening on both sides of the border right now, because I met her
But she'd be appalled in a very nice, calm Canadian way.
Yes. in a very nice Canadian way. And she'd
not like, fuck you guys, I hate you.
No, she would call me, and be upset about politics or whatever from Toronto. And I'm here in DC, and she would call and be like, oh, Manila, I'm so stinking angry. I'm like, oh, Mary, like, that's your version of angry. You're so cute. I love you.
All right.
So Canadians, we love you.
We do.
We do. Ted and I love you. I enjoy going up to visit you all.
In a very wholesome, polite way.
Yeah. I like you folks.
Not in a perverted Jeffrey Epstein kind of way.
No. In a very nice, you guys are
unless that's what you're into, in which case, yeah.
No, I like them in the you guys are the homies way.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. With that, I hope you guys, all you homies out there, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I think Peter Coffin will be joining us if life things get sorted out. To talk about the whole Tesla terrorism thing, because that's an interesting topic.
Teslarism.
Tesla shares, the shares are down, the stocks are down.
Oh, way down.
So I'm kind of torn, Ted. Do I invest or do I? You short it?
Yeah, you buy it. Now's a good time because
buy the stock or buy shorts.
Now buy the stock because he's going to have. That's going to go way up because there's all these government contracts waiting in the wings, right?
That's a good point. Because my ethical part of me is kind of like, yeah, but kind of fuck Elon. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, but Tesla stock, if it drops down below 40.
Under capitalism, nobody is innocent. Ethical investing is an oxymoron. As long as we're part of this system, we're part of gross corruption.
I know. So anyway, with that, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button or the join also that's newly available on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Adios, amigos. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, Ted.
See you Monday. Bye.
Bye.